Good evening. Welcome to this series of teachings on what I call experiencing the Buddha's teachings. Now we're on a topic of finding protection, refuge, and karma. And over the past few weeks, I have touched on the topic of refuge. Last week, just to review a little bit of what we have covered. Last week, in fact, we did a meditation on what's called the 5 remembrances or 5 reminders, which for me is a good way of putting together the 2 different so-called conditions for refuge. The first 4 reminders or remembrances first is I'm of the nature to grow old. Aging is unavoidable. This is the first one. The second is I'm of the nature to fall sick, to have ill health. So illness is unavoidable. Third is I'm of the nature to die. Death is unavoidable. The fourth is all that is dear and beloved to me is of a nature to change. Separation is unavoidable. So these are the first 4 of the 5 reminders or remembrances, and they kind of capture certain facts of life that for quite a lot of us can, well, it depends how we react to them. But hello, Craig. So by the way, most welcome to post your comments and feedback and questions on the live chat. So we can have some interactions. Yeah. The 4 things that quite often, at different occasions, we find them difficult to face up to, difficult to deal with. Also, the occasions where we need support. We seek refuge, seek protection. And so by reminding ourselves of the 4, of course, there are many other situations in life where we feel the need to have additional support. Feel the need to have some help to help us to deal with or to cope with our situations, our experiences, and so that is one aspect of refuge. Refuge is one of the conditions for refuge is, of course, when we are in need. We experience fear, we are experiencing overwhelming, difficult emotions, we face uncertainty, we are in confusion. Yeah. And the second condition, of course, is having conviction in certain objects of refuge that they're able to help us and that we actually rely on them. And so in the 5 remembrances, the 5th one remind us of the teaching of karma, the Buddhist teaching of karma. So it goes something like, we are the owners. I'm the owner of my actions. I am, let me see if I can remember. I'm the owners of action. I'm heir to my actions. I born of my actions, related through my actions, live supported by my actions. Whatever actions I do, be it for good or for ill, of that I will inherit. Yeah. So, and karma comes under, in this case, the refuge of Dharma, teaching us about certain facts, certain truths, and it is through be open and seeing and knowing the truth and then living our life or acting on the basis of that, that we find protection, we find support. So there's kind of a very brief summary of the topic of refuge, of how we find ourselves on certain times, certain occasions in life, in danger, in need, and then able to reach out, or it can also be in. Refuge can also be inside us. But anyway, outside or inside, we find something or someone, can be a person, can be an object, could be an inner quality or whatever it is, we find something that we trust and we can rely on, and that give us the support that we need, to see us through those situations, to face up to those maybe the more painful aspects of reality. Okay, so that is refuge, and that kind of nicely introduced us to this next topic I would like to cover over this and next week, which is the topic of karma, or karma is Sanskrit. Actually it just means actions, yeah, and the Buddha's teaching of action. But before I go on to it, I just want to highlight, since we are in this series, I really would like people to not only understand the different Buddhist topics, but also to see if we can find kind of personal experience of each of those topics in relation to refuge. Therefore, it's good to highlight to ourselves the occasions where we do reach out or whatever to our object of refuge, and we practice relying on our object of refuge. Because when we do that, and we are putting this particular teaching of refuge into practice, and this is true for whatever objects of refuge. Of course, they come in different, different quality. Because in Buddhism we have three, right? The Buddha jewel, the Dharma, the teaching, Dharma jewel, and the Sangha jewel. I often joke that I tend to abandon my, not abandon, I tend to sort of, I forgot about my Buddhist object of refuge, and I fall back on my most habituated objects of refuge, a big bag of potato chips, and I fall back on comfort eating. So when I find myself indulging it, then I am actually putting reliance on my object of refuge in practice. Although I'm not so sure the effect is that good as far as the potato chips is concerned. But the fact that I'm chowing down this whole bag of potato chips is an act of reliance. I'm relying on it to help me. And likewise, of course, on a more serious note, I might remind myself of certain teachings of the Dharma, and through reflecting on it or being aware of it, find that it's helpful, help me to find clarity, or help me to work with certain difficult feelings or emotions. Or I might reach out to, nothing wrong with comfort food, excellent, yeah. Although I think we need to be a bit more discerning about what we chow down, yeah. We reach out to our community, our Sangha, and find that we are not so alone, especially so isolated, especially at a difficult time. And that is also reliance. So when hopefully we become more aware of all the different occasions where we do rely on our objects of refuge. And you'll find that the more we rely on them and find that it helps, that really enhance our trust in these objects of refuge, our sense of confidence in them, and then that helps to increase the chances, increase our confidence that we will once again rely on them. We will remember that we have this object of refuge, that we can rely on them to help us, to give us protection. So when we talk about actualizing this topic of refuge, it boils down to, do I remember? Do I rely on my objects of refuge? And what do I find as a result of that? Do I find them trustworthy? Do I find them helpful? And does that enhance my conviction, my trust in my objects of refuge? Right? Okay. So now I can actually start on the topic of karma, actions. Buddhist scholars tend to say that before the Buddha, the Buddha lived in ancient India 2,500 years ago. They already have an established society. They have their own culture, their own, and scholars say that the word karma, before the Buddha, it means actions, but it has a much more limited or narrow range. It refers to specifically ritualistic action, rituals, which are a particular special category of actions. In this case, rituals or rites. These are not Buddhists. This is before the Buddhas. These are rites or rituals that are specifically geared to like, for example, making offering to whichever deities or gods, that people believe in, propitiating them, and so on. And so there is a stringent requirement on how you carry out the rituals. There's this idea that the rituals need to be performed precisely, accurately, and also by a special group of people, the priests, so to speak. They are specifically trained, or maybe they're born to do this role, to perform this role, this function. Yeah. So they do talk about karma, and seems to be only referring to ritualistic actions. If you do the rite or the ritual correctly, you will be rewarded by the deity, and so on. And conversely, if you do it wrongly, you make mistakes, then they have negative impact. And what the Buddha has done is to broaden the scope, basically, literally, which is very common for the Buddha to do. Take a concept that is already in existence, popular and during his time in his culture, and give it a twist. So he has this. If you read the Pali, especially the Pali Sutra, the Buddhist scriptures preserved in the language, nowadays we call it Pali, you may find that the Buddha, the historical Buddha in those scriptures, have a very dry sense of humor, at least for me, and like to play with words, with puns. Yeah? And so, and this is another occasion where he take a word like karma that has a certain meaning or interpretation in his culture, among the people, and then sort of reinterpret it and give it a different, put it in a different context, yeah, or reframe the whole idea. And the Buddha basically broadened it. It's not just referring to rituals; it refers to even actions we do in our daily life. And usually there are three types of action that in Buddhism we talk about. Of course, the physical action, the physical behavior, that we engage in, and also include then next is the verbal action, the speech, and the third category will be mental action. What do we do in our mind? That kind of thoughts that we dwell on. That is also a kind of action, because all these actions have some effects, have some consequences. Yeah. But he also highlights among all these different actions, he is famously highlight in this, what he say, karma is intention. So actions, of course, has different aspects, different components to it. But the Buddha specifically highlight the intention behind our actions, draw our attention to the intention. So in other words, we are not just looking from the outside to the kind of behavior, just the behavior, because we practice, someone gave some money to another person, to charity. Right? So that is the external action of giving. But then there is internally, there is also the intention behind the action. And the Buddha draw our attention to the importance of really be mindful of the intention. What is the intention? What is the motivating factors around or influencing this intention to give, right? And those are also important aspects of the teaching of karma. And depending on what is the intention, what are the motivating factors behind that intention, then it makes a big difference to the quality of that actions. So it's not just looking from the outside, but also we must consider the inner motivating factors. Yeah. So karma is intention, as the Buddha has declared. And today I would like to go through, maybe we can meditate on, and if you are active on the live chat, we can even have a discussion on what is usually called the 4 general characteristics of karma. So this is one way in Tibetan Buddhist tradition, when we come to the topic of karma, we present the topic of karma first by talking about the 4 general characteristics, and then talk about the specifics. Yeah, the specifics will be what kind of actions they are, and so on and so forth. So let's look in general about our actions. The 4 general characteristics, I just sort of list them out, and then we just talk a little bit on each one of them. Right? The first general characteristics of karma is to say that there is a kind of a definite relationship between cause and effect. Cause here means actions and the effects of actions. So in Buddhism, we will say virtuous or wholesome actions are causes or conducive for happiness, have happiness as their effects or results. Unwholesome or non-virtuous actions have causes of or have conducive to suffering. Yeah, suffering as their result. So, and this relationship is highly emphasized, definite. So, virtuous or virtue leads to happiness, non-virtuous leads to suffering. And this relationship is definite. It doesn't sort of it's not a case of how should I say it? You do a virtuous action. A virtuous action sometimes give happiness as a result, sometimes give suffering as a result, and so on. So not in that sense. Okay, so there's a definite relationship between actions and their results. And that's the first general characteristics that we can maybe later we'll come back to it and give some more thoughts to it. Yeah. The second general characteristic of karma is that even small actions, or what we label or assume to be small actions, can have great results. So it doesn't mean that small actions can only give small results, and only great or great actions give great result. It's not true. Even tiny little actions can give great results. Okay, this is the second. The third is if we do not create the actions, we do not act, we do not get the corresponding results or effects, which is sort of common sense, right? If I don't prepare a glass of water now here, I don't get to drink it. But since I do, so I get to have water to drink. Right. So if I do not create the action, the cause, I do not get to enjoy its results. Okay, that's the third one. And the fourth one is if I do create the cause, if I do act, then that action is not wasted. No, it will have its corresponding results and consequences. Yeah. So I think superficially, if you just read through it, or it seems okay, no, all right, I'm not 100% sure, but it sounds okay. That's often the case when we sort of when we approach this, or we come in touch with these 4 general characteristics. But I think sometimes it's good to go a bit deeper, ponder a little bit, contemplate a little bit more, and they can have quite much deeper implications if we were to allow ourselves to go deeper into them. So let's start with the first one, right? This definite relationship between actions as a cause and their corresponding results. Yeah. Very often in the world, among Buddhists or even non-Buddhists, you may find people, it's very common to use karma as an explanation. In other words, you're looking backward. Something happened to me, then I say, oh, it must be my bad karma ripening, or it must be your good karma. giving an explanation of what are the causes for the result that we are seeing here. And especially when the cause is not clear, it's not something we can directly see, then in a way, we are speculating, isn't it? In Asia, where I come from, sometimes people having gone through a hard time, especially in relationship with someone in their family or close to them. It's not unusual to hear people say, "Oh, I must have in past lives owned certain karmic debts, to this person, and now I'm paying back. Now it's payback time, which is why this person is causing me so much grief and so much suffering." So they are giving an explanation for current experiences or these recent experiences based on basically they speculate. I think they're speculating that they own this person some debts in the past, and I think it serves a certain function. This kind of karmic explanations, but personally, I think the power of the karma teaching is not so much in its explanatory power, which I personally am not so impressed, because a lot of it we don't know, right? I mean, of course, based on the Buddhist teaching, we say something must have happened in the past lives, leading to certain experiences in my present life, especially when I can't see clearly the exact cause and conditions that produce this kind of experiences. So I might attribute it to some past life actions or causes. Fair enough, but a lot of it is speculation, because of course I can't remember exactly my past lives, what happened. And also the other thing is it deprives the teaching of karma of its true power. Its true power is actually for us to look forward. It's to tell us, if I have a goal, if I long for something, if I aspire to arrive at a certain destination, then now is the time where I have the power. In terms of the choices I make, in terms of the actions I do, or the actions I refrain from doing, then I am creating that future. I'm creating the causes now to bring about certain effects or consequences that I want, that I would like to arrive at. So this is the much more positive, uplifting aspect of the karma teaching. Because what happens is it plays the power, so-called, I wouldn't say control, but it's not, we don't really have exact control, but it puts the power back onto us. It empowers us. It reminds us that we do have the power to make choices. Right? If we are mindful, if we are attentive to what is happening, we are attentive to the kind of choices that we are constantly making from one moment to another. And if we give that attention and we are wise about it, we can again and again make the choices, create the kind of actions, and refrain from other kind of actions that enable me to move forward in the direction that I want to go, enable me to achieve whatever it is that I want to achieve. Or at least it creates, I'm creating the appropriate causes and conditions that are in favor of that result. So it's very empowering, I think, if we adopt the forward-looking aspect of karma. Right? So having said that, then we really need to come back and look at these first general characteristics and ask ourselves, so given that we are saying that there is a definite relationship between the cause, the actions, and the result, happiness or suffering, then we have to ask ourselves, so what are these wholesome actions? What are these virtuous actions? And likewise, what are all these unwholesome or non-virtuous actions? How do I know which one is virtuous or non-virtuous? So that by creating more virtuous actions, I'm increasing my chances to experience happiness as a result. And by decreasing the so-called unwholesome or non-virtuous action, I'm decreasing the chances of me experiencing suffering. So, and it becomes very crucial to find out what makes an action wholesome or unwholesome. And that brings us to the Buddha's teaching of intention. So what determines the quality of virtuous or non-virtuous of actions lies very much on intention. And what are the motivating factor influencing our intention to act? Yeah. So Buddhism, famously, we listed three, sometimes we call them the three poisonous minds or the three fires because they burn us, cause suffering. So these are the three attitudes that are identified as the root of non-virtue. So it starts with ignorance. Sometimes I prefer to call it delusion because this ignorance doesn't mean simply not knowing, but also misknowing, knowing things in the wrong way. So we start off with a mistake, a fundamental mistake. So ignorance, and another one is our so-called attachment, or in the past they like to translate as greed. So they're all related: greed, attachment, craving. So there's one of the second non-virtuous or unwholesome roots. Yeah, and the third one, of course, has to do with ill will, the intention to harm, or malice, sometimes translated as hatred. Some people include anger. Right? So these are the three non-virtuous roots. So if our actions, be it of body or speech or mind, involve one of these three, then it becomes a non-virtuous action. If it is born out of ignorance, born out of attachment, born out of hatred, then it makes the actions, or be it of body or speech or mind, are non-virtuous. And according to the Buddha, this kind of actions, this kind of causes, leads to suffering. And you can almost guess, get a sense of why. And I think the why is very important. It's not because I think understanding the why goes a long way to help us to identify these different kind of non-virtuous actions, as well as the non-virtuous motivating factors, help us to see for ourselves and to prove for ourselves, in our own experience, to affirm whether it is true or not, this relationship between actions motivated by ignorance, by greed or attachment, by hatred, are conducive to suffering. So we need to affirm for ourselves this relationship, so that it create a kind of help us more willing to let go of it, to not go down this way. It all starts with ignorance. Ignorance or delusion means a misunderstanding of reality, to know reality wrongly. To quite often could involve projecting mistaken ideas or holding on to wrong views and opinions about reality. So if the first step, we're already wrong. We don't see reality clearly. In fact, we see distorted. And then we hold on to that distorted images, the distorted ideas. So everything becomes distorted. The first step is already crooked, then it just keep going, in the wrong direction. And because it is in that way not in sync with reality, we already deviated from it. We already we have misunderstood it. We got it all wrong to start off with. Then how can the actions based on such a mistaken understanding, a mistaken kind of perception, lead to accurate or good results? Because we are not seeing things clearly enough. We are seeing things in the wrong way. Yeah. So, for example, with attachment is often we project certain exaggerated good qualities onto the object, onto the person, qualities or ideal that actually isn't there with that person. It's not that we are actually attached to an image of the person that doesn't exist. The person is not like that image. Doesn't mean the person is necessarily bad, but it's just that there is great discrepancy between the real person and our projected image on the person. So there is a discrepancy. At first, we are too preoccupied with our projected image on the person that we don't notice the reality. But as we get to know the person better, as we spend more time together, then inevitably, the discrepancy come into awareness, and then we are hurt, we are disappointed, or we are upset. Why aren't you living up to my standard? Why aren't you fulfilling my expectations? Which, of course, sometimes is not possible, especially if your expectations or your ideal beyond human possibilities. Then, and we get hurt, we get disappointed, and others get hurt, others get disappointed. Because all along, the interaction is not based on facts, not based on reality. It's based on that, our projected images. So the difference between what we want and what we need, would this be ignorance? Want and need. Yeah, I think in this case, if there is confusion, I'm not so familiar with this use of the term want and need. I know there's in psychology, there's a difference between them. But at the moment, in my mind, I'm a bit confused about them. I don't know the clear distinction. But definitely, if in the case of if we are using these terms want and need, and if I'm now confused about them, that confusion is again a kind of ignorance, isn't it? A kind of misunderstanding. In this case, partially not knowing, and not knowing, then I might project my own ideas. I give it my own interpretation, and then as a result, I might make the wrong choices. Because fundamentally, I'm not in touch with reality. Yeah. I meant we could be deluded. Yeah, we could be. In fact, most of the time we are deluded. We hold a lot of beliefs and opinions in us, strongly held, and sometimes those come to us due to influences by people around us or by early life experiences. And those let me finish this. Those views and opinions and beliefs, quite a lot of them are, in a sense, inaccurate, deluded. So we start off with delusion or confusion, and therefore that's why everything they build on that becomes problematic. Are the non-virtues of greed and hatred both born out of the non-virtue of ignorance, or do they operate independently? No, in Buddhism, ignorance is fundamental. Ignorance or delusion is fundamental, and then out of that comes attachment and hatred. So attachment and hatreds are, of course, when we are attached, we are the attachment and hatred are separate. The two slightly different non-virtues, but both are rooted in ignorance. So sometimes, if you have a chance to look at this image called the wheel of life, I think it's called the wheel of life, where this is a Tibetan Buddhist drawing of Yama, this monster holding this wheel, within which are depicted the different realms of existence. Yeah. And at the very center of that image, usually three animals drawn, that represent ignorance, attachment, and hatred. And occasionally, I think ignorance is symbolized by a pig. I don't know why, but it's sort of a symbolism. And hatred, I think, symbolized by a snake, and attachment symbolized by a rooster. I'm not quite sure about the why, but sometimes they are drawn three animals in a circle. But occasionally, there are also another variant where they show the snake and the rooster come out of the mouth of the pig. So that means they are born out of ignorance. And ignorance is really the basis. Because of our ignorance of reality, a deluded view of reality, that's why on the basis of it, we become attached to certain things, and we develop hatred to other things. Right? So this is the non-virtuous side. let's briefly touch on the virtuous side. And I also encourage you to look to your own experiences or in your daily life, kind of see if you can affirm for yourself whether this relationship is true or not, this relationship between virtue and happiness. Is our belief of inherent existence the roots of ignorance? Our belief in inherent existence, our belief in things existing independently or permanently or have some kind of intrinsic essence, that is actually ignorance itself. It's not the root of ignorance, it is ignorance. And ignorance is therefore the so-called the root of all our problems. So the belief in inherent existence or independent existence is ignorance itself. Yeah. Okay, so virtue, like for example, in Buddhism is very easy. I don't know, maybe in Sanskrit or Pali, they just say, what are the three roots of virtues? They just put a negative particle in front: non-ignorance, non-attachment, and non-hatred. But of course, so it's easy to say, okay, it's something opposite of ignorance, opposite of hatred, opposite of attachment. But what exactly is that quality that is opposite? Yeah. So ignorance, the opposite of ignorance. Sometimes we use the word to put it in a positive way. Wisdom, understanding reality. Wisdom, directly realizing, knowing reality itself. Yeah. Knowing and seeing clearly reality. So that there's one wisdom. So if we are able to act out of wisdom some deep, correct understanding, then those actions are conducive to happiness because we are not fundamentally deluding ourselves. Yeah. Then non-hatred is easy. It can quite often we just call it loving kindness, metta in Pali or maitri in Sanskrit. So love is opposite of hate. In this case, loving kindness, which is if hatred has this quality of intending to harm, to hurt, or to destroy, then loving kindness is the opposite, having the intention to care, and wishing, wanting ourselves and others to be happy, to find happiness. Yeah. The third one is a little bit more tricky. Non-attachment, the opposite of attachment, opposite of craving, of clinging, of greed. I think non-attachment is actually, sometimes it's good to just leave it as non-attachment. Some people may call it generosity. Nothing wrong with it, but I think generosity may not capture the whole meaning of non-attachment. Generosity is part of non-attachment, precisely because I'm not attached, I'm not hoarding, I'm not clinging onto my possessions, then I'm much more generous in spirits. I'm able to give, I'm able to share. Yeah, that's true. But non-attachment for me is a bit broader than generosity. It also has imply a different relationship to we have to the things that we normally attach to. Sometimes it's translated as renunciation. Sometimes it's replaced with the word renunciation, which unfortunately in our society, or at least in English language, it seems to have a certainly not so nice connotation, and seems to always have to do with giving away things. If you have renunciation, it's almost like you can't own anything. You must give them away. Unfortunately, sometimes I would say to people, even if you gave away everything, you may still not have renunciation, because renunciation, non-attachment, is not so much to do with whether you have or you don't have certain things, but to do with your relationship with the things. Whether the things are in your possession or not in your possession usually doesn't matter. I can be attached to things that I don't own just as strongly as I'm attached to things that I actually own. Yeah. So here it says, could non-attachment be freedom? Yeah, well, yeah, you can. But the word freedom is quite vague, right? There's different kinds of freedom. So, non-attachment could be freedom from clinging, freedom from craving or attachment. That is true, yeah. So quite often I just leave it as non-attachment. a very different kind of relationship and attitude towards objects, people, and other things, which is the opposite of the kind of clinging, craving attitude we have, we associate with attachment or greed. Yeah. So the first general characteristic is saying if we act, we nurture and act out this kind of virtuous factors, if these factors are the one motivating my actions, and those actions that come out of it will be wholesome and they are conducive for happiness, they are conditions for happiness. Okay, so not difficult to sort of understand if you are, you spend time reading on Buddhist literature, or in spiritual circle, Buddhist or non-Buddhist, it's kind of not an uncommon idea. But I think the important thing with this first thing is to really, first of all, develop a kind of, to test it out personally, to see whether within ourselves, do we believe in it? Is it true for us? Is it true? Maybe there are exceptions. And you may find that quite often people can point out that they certain exceptions in their own experience, and then we must look closer at the details of the so-called exception. People will say, "Or I love, and yet I'm hurt from it." That's not uncommon, isn't it? Or they can say that sometimes hatred, and can be helpful, can be beneficial. Our hatred, I kill somebody and then it save other people's life, and so on and so forth. Karma topic is always full of all these different real or quite often hypothetical scenarios and situations where we try to try to figure out, who's right and who's wrong, or what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do. But I'm not going to go into that at least in this session. But I really encourage you to think a little bit about that relationship and to really see how convinced you are in your own heart. Yeah, and that is an important point of this first general characteristics: the definite relationship between virtues and happiness, and non-virtues and suffering. Okay, so I want to just help cover the rest, and then we can look at particular meditation that we can do in relation to this part of the explanation. The second one, small actions can give great results. There are different ways to interpret that. One is to simply say that something very trivial, or seems to be very trivial, can have a tremendous amount of great effect. Sometimes just a slip of tongue, you just make a comment, and then you might trigger a tremendous kind of reaction, for good or for bad, from someone else. So that tiny little word that you happen to utter, it's just one word, but what comes back to you might not be just one word. It could be like a whole big lecture. So small actions can give rise to great result. That's one way of looking at it. Yeah. Another way to look at it is in terms of time. And there is this very beautiful image that I personally find quite helpful. It's like we have a huge big container for water, and if we were to fill it with a dropper, basically drop by drop, right? Takes a long time, isn't it? But if we persevere, drop by drop, so long as we persevere, one day that container, however big it will be, one day, given enough time and enough drops, it will be filled, right? And you can't say that it's filled by the last drop. In fact, it's filled by all these many little tiny drops. Yeah. So this is a slightly different interpretation. So a tiny action, something that is seemingly trivial and insignificant, when repeated or accumulated over a period of time, the results can be quite significant, isn't it? It doesn't always just stay small, even though the action itself or the droplet itself, one drop is a tiny amount of water. But when you're able to accumulate it over a duration of time, the end result can be quite magnificent. So likewise, this help us to remind us to be mindful in our daily life. Little things that we keep doing, we keep repeating. Just because it's so routine that we don't notice it, we become like our habits. We tend to not give enough attention to it, and yet accumulated over a long period of time, it can have a tremendously positive effect or tremendously negative effect. So not to underestimate the power of little actions. Right? An act of kindness repeated, act of love and concern repeated over a long period of time. Very tiny little action here and there towards someone else, when accumulated together, can be felt as a true expression of loving concern. Likewise, little act of negative in speech, of harsh speech, or putting somebody down, can create tremendous damage to another person. If day in, day out, this is the little thing that you keep getting, can cause a lot of damage, a lot of harm, and creates a tremendous suffering, right, both for yourself and for the other person. So never look down on what seemingly small, tiny action in the context of teaching of karma. And the third one, which I personally find I quite often I have to remind myself, is if I do not create the causes, the actions that are the causes, I do not get to experience the results. And I need to remind myself that, because I'm inclined to sit and grumble about certain things or complain. If there is an attentive audience, I might just go on and on. I just complain about things that I'm unhappy about, the things that I would like to be changed. But complaining, in my case, or grumbling, is not the appropriate actions to bring about the change. In fact, I'm avoiding or not doing the things that I need to do in order to bring about change. Instead, I'm just wasting my time, in a sense, just grumbling, giving vents to my unhappiness or through complaints. So if I do not create the necessary actions that are the causes for the change, causes for whatever it is I'm longing for, I don't get to enjoy the results. This is an important thing to sort of think about, to remind ourselves. If I want certain result, I must accumulate the causes and conditions for it. And quite often, it boils down to how I act or the choices that I'm making day in, day out. And so if I don't make those choices, or I make a different set of choices, I cannot expect the result. The result will often corresponds to the causes that I'm creating. Right? And just to finish the fourth one is if I create an actions. Quite often in karma teaching, you may find people what they're trying to do is a process of rationalization, including myself. Yeah, we're trying to cancel an action. We're trying to somehow wipe it clean, and be done with it and got rid of it, and then I'm fine. I'll be all right. Unfortunately, karma, the Buddhist teaching of karma, there's no such thing as wiping it clean. I made a mistake. Let's rewind. Let's redo, and just forget about that. And asking the universe to somehow just wipe the slate clean, so to speak. It doesn't happen like this. It only goes in one direction, doesn't go backward. And this is to remind us that if we create an action for good or for bad, then it will bring forth its corresponding result, depending, of course, on conditions. So it wouldn't be wasted, it wouldn't get misplaced and forgotten, and just somehow I forgot, you forgot, everybody forgot, the universe forgot, and then we somehow managed to escape from it. There's no such thing as escaping from it just due to forgetfulness. It doesn't happen that way, because once we set forth the momentum of an action into the universe, it's out there. It has gone off, interacting with other conditions, giving rise to whatever result in its own time. Of course, it takes time. I like to use an image to represent quite a lot of these points. Just as an analogy, I think of a body of water, like a pond or a pool of water, and an action is like dropping a pebble into the water. And as it hits the water, it sends out ripples into the environment, into its surrounding. Right? And that ripple will interact with others' ripples, my other actions, other people's actions. It gets very complicated very quickly. It gets to a point where it's very hard to tell this particular wave at this particular point, where does it come from? Of course, there's always going to be a relationship between the cause, my act of dropping the pebble, and whatever that is that might come back to me, rebound somewhere and come back to me. There's often a relationship, but it's not always possible to tell the complex causes and conditions and interactions along the way, for it to come back to me, because it gets very complicated very quickly as my actions interact with other causes and conditions, including other people's actions, past and present, and they all kind of interact together in a complicated way. And that image gave me, it was very helpful for me to think that any action that I do create is sent forth out into the universe. It's true even if the action is only inside my own head, in my own thoughts. Nonetheless, it's sending out in a metaphorical way. I'm not thinking of anything supernatural. Just metaphorically, it has a certain effect. And that will interact with other conditions to bring forth some kind of results. So therefore, it's important to be mindful, not in a kind of uptight way, but mindful of how powerful our actions can be, because we are constantly creating ripples, rippling into the environment, rippling out to others, into the universe, and others' actions are also rippling, and they all combine, interact, and some of it come back to me. Right? And so, if I want to achieve certain results, I want to get somewhere, I need to be mindful and careful and wise about what sort of ripples am I creating, and as well as when I'm creating, not only what, but when and where, and all the other conditions. Okay, so I hope I know there's a very brief kind of explanation of the general characteristics of karma, but I find this teaching very helpful because before we are all caught up in the specifics of individual actions and we're trying to figure out, am I doing it right or doing it wrong, which is very common when it comes to karma. We try to fall back on the general characteristics just to get our mind, our head around the four important characteristics and really think about it, really work out for ourselves the implications, and how that can guide us in making our choices. For example, the first one, when we really take it on board, then we are persuading ourselves to do more of the virtuous actions and to do less of the non-virtuous actions. It sounds like common sense, and it is common sense, but sometimes it's a bit different when you fully embrace it, in your own heart and really make an effort in that direction. The second point is to be mindful not only of the big decision, the major thing that preoccupy our attention, but also look into the daily, almost seemingly innocent interactions we have with the people around us, the kind of things we say to others, also to say to us in our own mind, the kind of comments, the kind of criticisms we may level on ourselves or others, all these little things. in speech, in behavior, in thought, they can also have tremendous impact. And also to really be aware that if I don't act in a certain way, if I don't make certain choices, I don't get to experience their corresponding results. So if I want to be happy, I have to actively create the conditions for happiness. There's no point just sitting there and complain. I like to do. I'm not happy. Well, it's good to acknowledge I'm not happy, but I must also not neglect my part in creating the causes for happiness. And the fourth one is having created the actions. It's sort of like almost like my idea is once it's out into the universe, it's out of my hand. There's no way of tracing it back and say, wait, let me redo it. And even if I don't see its effects immediately or obviously, nonetheless, I can be reassured that it doesn't just disappear. Energy is not somehow energy that is expanded. Don't just kind of disappear. They go somewhere. They have certain kind of impact. May not be obvious at first, but nonetheless, they do exist. So to again bring mindfulness into it. Yeah. Okay, so that is my brief kind of presentation on the 4 general characteristics of karma. If you have anything unclear or any question, you're most welcome to post a comments on the chat. Yeah. So do thoughts create ripples just as real as physical actions, even if we do not act on the thoughts? Thoughts are actions in Buddhism. So the kind of thoughts that we indulge in, especially if we do it over and over again, have real consequences. I wouldn't say that it's exactly the same as a physical action. Likewise, no, a physical action, a verbal, speech, thought are 3 different kinds of actions. So they are not equivalent, but all of them have consequences. They are corresponding consequences. So for example, if I'm punched by someone physically, that has an effect, right? Whereas if it's only imagined, it's not the same. But nonetheless, by indulging in a certain kind of thoughts, I'm reinforcing certain habits. I'm sort of solidifying certain way of thinking and acting. And those have immediate impact on my well-being and also in the kind of choices I might find myself making in the future. So if I indulge a lot in thoughts of hatred, who is to say one day I might find myself in a situation where out of a moment of mindlessness, I might act out those thoughts because they are so habituated and they're so strongly imprinted on my own mind. Yeah. And likewise, of course, on a positive note, if I, let's say I meditate on loving kindness, I kind of familiarize myself with thoughts and feelings of love. Then one day I might find that in a situation with someone, without me thinking about it, completely unconscious about it and spontaneously, words may come out of my mouth that embodied that quality of kindness and love. I have read about the story like this of someone went on a loving kindness retreat and spent the entire retreat radiating loving kindness to his business partner. And because there problem at business, so they have been really, the relationship was really tense and very negative. And so spent this weekend retreat just off thinking and offering loving thoughts to the partner, not feeling very loving at all, but just repeating the words. And yet, when went back to work and the first instant encountering this partner, and the first word that came out of his mouth, or hello, shocked both of them because the word came out with a sense of warmth that is unexpected, both for the partner and for the person himself. So, where did that come from? Why is the tone so different from? It's not frosty, so to speak. Yeah. And so it goes to show thoughts that we repeatedly enter into have real consequences. Yeah. Okay, I have in mind to do a meditation on this first one. Because personally, in my experience, studying the Buddhist teaching and teaching it, I observe that quite often when we come to the topic of karma, we tend to do it this way. We tend to approach it, I would say, from outside in. The outside is we are told, or we ourselves know, what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do. So, okay, if in terms of virtue, let's say, it's right that I should do this or I should not do that. There's nothing right and wrong about that. Yeah. But so we start from that prescription, so to speak, and we try to act in line with that prescription. Sometimes this so-called prescription come in the form of vows or precepts. Like Buddhists, we have 5 lay precepts for lay people. Not to kill, not to steal, not to engage in sexual misconduct, not to tell lies, and not to indulge or to take intoxicants, things that affect the functioning of the mind. And so we might try to follow the letter, so to speak, of the precepts. And that enables us to, in difficult situations, because life is never that straightforward. Life can be quite complicated. For example, if your house is overrun with certain pests like cockroaches or mice, and you try to do it the humane way to be rid of it, but you can't. It's not working. What are you going to do? Or you find termites, especially if you have a timber house or timber structures, and then it's infested with termites. Then we try to navigate that kind of situation in terms of right and wrong, isn't it? So what is right? If I do it this way, am I right? Is it okay? If I do it that way, it's not okay. I also observe sometimes people on alone, we can't be so sure. But if there's just one other person, we say, oh, if I do this, is it okay? And if the other person says, yes, it's okay, somehow it becomes okay. Because there are two voices say okay, then it must be okay. So we just, and hence what we do unconsciously, or subconsciously, we try to get, if you say no, okay, all right, I'm not going to talk to you, I'm going to look for someone else. I find one person that would say okay, then somehow that choice or actions become okay. I don't know whether I'm making any sense, but you can observe among yourself. That is looking from the action from outside and following a certain standard and say, is this okay or not? Is this right or wrong? I suggest maybe in this meditation we can do it another way. It starts from the inside. And it doesn't necessarily bring greater clarity, but it's a different approach to it. Start from, let's say, I don't know whether it is right or wrong. I can't always be sure. Occasionally, yes, I'm quite confident, but there are also many situations in life where it's not so clear cut, not so clean cut, that I know that I'm absolutely on the right side, the right camp, so to speak. So let's start from inside. Let's try to see if we can get in touch within ourselves with the 3 roots of virtue. Is it possible for me to touch wisdom, touch love kindness, touch the quality of non-attachment, and see what comes out from there? So that's what I call inside out, as opposed to outside in. Outside in is to look at the mechanism, the actions, the choices, and say, oh, this is the right one, that's the wrong one. Inside out is this way of using it is touch loving kindness and see what comes out of it. It doesn't necessarily make the choice easy. It doesn't necessarily clarify the situation. We may still be left with uncertainty, and but nonetheless, I quite like that there is another option. That we go back to the roots and try to nurture the quality of kindness, try to nurture quality of wisdom, the quality of non-attachment, and see whether something different can come out from there. And so that's why I think we can do meditation on loving kindness at this point of time. So we nurture the roots, and by nurturing it, by cultivating it, we allow in a way, by getting it stronger and stronger, we may find that it will manifest itself automatically, spontaneously, without conscious deliberation. Instead of the other way where we say, what is the right thing, what is the wrong thing? If I'm loving, what should I do? Or someone will tell you, if you are loving, you should do what I say. Because if you love me, this is what you will do. There's no other way. Yeah. So that is what I say, going from outside in. We may say, ask ourselves, can I touch loving kindness? And then what comes out from that loving kindness? How would that quality manifests itself in my behavior, in my speech, in my thoughts? Okay, so if that's okay if you with you, then we can do a short meditation together to nourish and to nurture the roots of virtue within ourselves. Loving kindness is probably the easiest among the three to do, so that's what we're going to do now. Yeah. So take a few moments and just adjust your posture and see if you can find a comfortable, supportive meditation posture. And I'm just going to ring this bell to signal the start of the meditation. So try to make sure that your body is comfortable, or as comfortable as it can be in your adopted posture. Take care that if you're sitting, that your back is upright in a natural way without consciously tensing up. You don't have to tense up your back muscles to straighten your back. Just move your upper body around a bit. Find the most comfortable posture for yourself. You can also lie on your back in this meditation, and ensure that your back is straight if you are lying down. Rest your hands and arms on some support in such a way that allow your shoulders to be relaxed. You're most welcome to close your eyes. And of course, you can also leave them open or half open, whichever one you are most used to. So let's take a few moments, allow the body to find its way into the meditation posture. See if you can allow the body to feel or to become aware that it is resting on solid, firm, and stable support in this posture. And that the body feel well supported, balanced, and safe in the posture. What we're trying to do is to see if we can trigger a natural process whereby the body, realizing that it is well supported, may come to realize that quite a lot of those tensions or contractions that we hold within our body are unnecessary, are not needed. They can start to loosen up a bit, to unwind, to release, to let go of some of those tightness, those contractions. So much so that given time, we may actually find the body settle down really comfortably into the posture. And the next step is to help the body and mind to further transition into meditation, to shift gears, to settle into the state of meditation. So let's make use of our breath as a support in this part of the meditation. See if you can. We can start with a few deep breaths that might be helpful. Breathing in and out deeply for a few times and reminding ourselves to release as we breathe out. We allow the breath to settle back into its natural rhythm. And at least for the first few minutes of the meditation, See if we can rest our attention on the simple sensations of the breath in the body, allowing ourselves to experience the in-breath and the out-breath, the feeling of air flowing in and out of the body, as well as a sense of expansion and contraction at the chest, or a rising and falling movement at the abdomen. So coming back, reconnecting attention with breath sensations, we give special attention to the out breath, to that sense of release that comes along with the out breath. And see if that can facilitate the body to deepen the sense of release, releasing more and more of the discomfort and unnecessary tensions. Facilitate the mind to let go of some of the thoughts or images, memories, fantasies that pop into it. Each time we notice maybe our attention has wandered off elsewhere, see if we can regard that as an opportunity to invite our attention to come back to the breath, an opportunity with the out breath to deepen the sense of release, release the thoughts that preoccupy the mind, release other concerns, let them flow away with the breath. And then we can always come back to the breath throughout the rest of the meditation if we feel the need to. Now we're going to turn our attention to the cultivation of loving kindness, this particular root of virtue. We try to get in touch with the natural kindness we have within ourselves, to nurture it so that it can manifest in our thoughts, in our speech, and also in our physical behavior. So we start with oneself, radiating kindness to oneself, just briefly, and then we turn our attention to offering kindness to the other people in our life. So my usual method is to repeat a few simple phrases that best convey what I understand, what it means to love and to care. So feel free to start with my stock phrases and change them as you go along. So mindfully, slowly repeat the following phrases to oneself. May I live in safety. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. May I live in safety, wishing myself to be safe, free from danger. May I live in safety. May I be happy, wishing myself to have mental happiness, to have joy, cheerfulness. May I be happy. May I be healthy, wishing myself to have physical well-being, to be free of anxiety over my own health. May I be healthy, and may I live with ease, as in, may things happen easily for me, smoothly, no obstacles, no hassle. May I live with ease. May I live in safety. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. So see if we can slowly, mindfully repeat our own phrases of loving kindness. And as we say each phrase, think of it as we are cultivating the intention, the loving intention behind the words, and directing that towards oneself, sincerely from the bottom of our heart. May I live in safety. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. So coming back to the phrases, if we do get distracted, see if we can be kind to ourselves, to our own mind. And each time we repeat a phrase, think of it as planting a seed of loving intention or nurturing one that already exists within us. We nurture loving intention so that in time it will manifest, ripen the way we think about ourselves, manifest in that way, manifest in terms of speech about ourselves, and manifest in the form of the kind of choices and behavior towards oneself. May I live in safety. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. And then feel free to continue radiating loving kindness, nurturing loving intentions towards oneself if you like for the rest of the meditation. Otherwise, you might want to consider now turning our attention to the people in our life, especially those closest to us, and see if we can, one at a time, bring them to mind. And with each one of them, we try to nurture our loving intention and express that loving intention in the form of a few simple phrases to convey our love and concern towards each one of them. So picture your loved ones in your mind one at a time, And at your own pace and in your own way, repeat the phrases and offer loving kindness towards each one of them. May you live in safety. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. So coming back to the person you are radiating loving kindness towards, feel free to stay as long as short as you like with each one of them. Moving on when you feel ready, picture the person, direct loving thoughts towards that person. May you live in safety. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Coming back to the phrases of loving kindness, as you repeat them sincerely, slowly, mindfully, you may already notice how the words might trigger thoughts about the person, thought of different wishes. So loving intention, when we cultivate them, when we strengthen them, often find naturally expressions in thoughts, and maybe later in words, and also in deeds. So we come back again and again to the heart and nurture and nourish the loving kindness itself, the root of virtue. May you live in safety. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. And then finally, we put aside the words, we say goodbye for now to our loved ones. We come back here and now, and we can gather up all the positive momentum we have created this evening through meditating, through listening and learning about the Buddha's teachings. Let's dedicate this positive momentum towards the fulfillment of our aspirations, and higher aspirations that we have for ourselves or for others. We dedicate it that it may bring this into fruition. So there is a loving kindness meditation, and you may find that by meditation is a little bit artificial, but in an artificial setting, trying to nurture and familiarize ourselves with, in this case, loving thoughts, especially since I'm using phrases. Hopefully, we are able to touch the living intention behind those words and nurture them and strengthen that living intention. And given time and given conditions, you may find that the intention naturally expresses itself, in words, in our behavior, in thoughts that come spontaneously to mind. And so this is my suggestions, to approach karma from within, from the intention, as opposed to coming from outside, from certain prescribed set of what's right and what's wrong, what I should do and what I shouldn't do. Because sometimes coming from outside, we might find ourselves there's a disconnect between an action that we should do and the actual feeling or intention. And then there may be a discrepancy. Where there's discrepancy, incongruence, then it might be a source of suffering. Right. So that's it from me, and thank you very much for your attention. So I wish you have a good week ahead, and next week we'll continue with teaching on karma. So have a good evening. Thank you.